Welcome, everyone, to episode number 10 of our podcast, Motivate to Move. I am John Lagroff.
And I'm Diane Trites.
Diane, can you believe it? I said it. Episode 10, double digits.
I know.
I was not expecting us to get to episode 10. What do you think of that?
Well, I just can't believe we've already done 9 episodes. And I was talking with one of my children today who hasn't listened to a single episode. And she says she's going to have to do a marathon of listening right now.
Yeah, well, hey, 10 episodes is something to celebrate. I mean, maybe I'll have to go and get an ice cream after this. Who knows?
Oh, make it chocolate.
Of course. But today we have a very special guest with us, Mr. Paul Bass. And he's been running for 5 or 6 or 7 years. He's run all kinds of half marathons. He's played basketball back in the past. He's one of our cousins from the United States of America. Maybe he can tell us where he's from exactly. And Paul Bass, I know very soon is running a full marathon, and he asked me to join him on this little adventure of his. So, Paul, thanks a lot for joining us on Motivate to Move.
It's great to be here.
Now, Paul, like I said, I know that you're from the United States. You're from North Carolina. And I just thought maybe you could give us a little bio about your background, you know, what you're into, what you do, what it is that makes you move.
Growing up, I was always kind of active in like Little League baseball and whatever kind of sports were going on through the rec department. And then in high school, I was playing basketball. And mind you, it wasn't one of these top elite 5-star places where you're going to get a scholarship and a full ride to the NBA, obviously. But it was a pretty good competition and all, and played high school ball there for 4 years. Then sometime after that, I just kind of got away from doing like regular sports. I moved to some intramural sports for a while in college and then just kind of dropped off and went several years where mainly I did some hiking, but nothing like really major. Never really was a gym rat or anything like that. And then you fast forward, 20 some years and I just decided that I wanted to run a 5K. Now, also in between that, I gained quite a bit of weight. I packed on from my high school weight of like 130 to about 235, and I ended up losing over 50 pounds.
Hey, congratulations.
But thank you. And that was just a lot of, changing the diet and changing different things and just changing the way I was thinking about dieting, period. But then life started happening. My dad got sick. My mom had Alzheimer's, things like that. And I was just back and forth from here to North Carolina. And it's just one of those things that started putting the weight back on. And I got back over 200. And I realized that something needed to change. So I got back on the bandwagon there, or got back on the wagon, and lost back. So now I'm sitting around 180, which is fine. That's about where I want to be. So I'm happy with that. And I've been running since then for the last 5 years.
That's awesome. Good for you. And I certainly understand about life. Sometimes it just gets in the way and it goes so quickly and you don't realize just how inactive you are or what an unhealthy lifestyle you're leading. And it sounds like you were very active when you were younger, just for fun, just a recreational activity, baseball, you said basketball. So tell us about what motivated you to run that first 5K? Like, why did you think you wanted to run 5K?
Well, I'm not exactly sure. I've been trying to think of it. Part of it, it's probably a combination of factors. Some of it, my dad had passed a year before that I started running. He wasn't he's an older man and he wasn't the best of shape. And I didn't want to be that way, even though I had started losing the weight at that time anyway, or re-losing the weight. And I just wanted to be in best shape. And I would often go and get fitted for shoes up here. But then I would go to an outlet in Maine or somewhere else in the U.S. on a shopping trip and get the shoes that I got fitted for like $100 less. So even with the exchange rate, I was saving quite a bit of money and picking up a couple of pair of shoes. But this one year, it was the year after my dad died, and it was 2015. So probably February, March, I was riding by there and I looked over at my wife and I said, this year I'm going to run a 5K. Just out of the blue, I just decided I was going to run a 5K. Didn't think anything else about it. And then a couple of months later in June, I knew that we were planning on going back home to North Carolina to visit family. So I figured I better go on and get fitted for my running shoes then while I was thinking about it. And I walked in to the running room store and got fitted for shoes, and I ended up buying a pair of shoes and signing up for the Learn to Run clinic.
So you hadn't initially expected to do that then? You just went in, you were going to buy shoes. You weren't expecting to sign up for that Learn to Run clinic.
No, I didn't even realize they had clinics like that. Like I just...
okay, I see.
And so I saw that, hey, that's, starting, and it was starting the very 1st of July of 2015. And I was like, well, I forgot what the price was, like $70 or $80 for like a 10, 12 week class. I'm like, well, I might as well, doesn't hurt. I want to do 5K. I might as well learn how to do it right. So I ended up signing up, and that was all she wrote from there.
So how did the clinic go? Was it a couch to 5K clinic?
It wasn't a couch to 5K, but it probably followed a similar format. Because basically, I think the first week we started out with 1 or 2 minutes of walking and then 1 minute of running. And then it kind of progressed from there. So each week we would keep the 1 minute, make it 1 minute of walking, and it would be extra running. So got up to 10 minutes of 10 and 1s. And so it's, I guess, a similar format to couch to 5K. But then also it had quite a bit, like the running room every week would have talks, and I had probably one of the best instructors in town, Carrie Gaskin. She just, I don't know, she facilitated my love for running just with her knowledge and what she was able to share with us.
So at the end of that clinic, when it ended, you said, 8 or 10 weeks? Were you, at what level of running were you at that point? Were you still running like 10 and 1s, or were you running straight through?
Yeah, well, the clinic itself was still doing 10 and 1s. I had kind of set a goal through there. Like, first of all, about probably the 3rd or 4th weekend, when I was doing 4 and 1s or 5 and 1s, something like that, I hated running with all my heart. Like, I was like, I'm not a quitter. I said, I'm going to do this stupid 5K. I'm going to do the 5K, and that's it. I'm hanging up the shoes. I don't need this crap.
Good for you. Good for
So
you
funny.
for sticking with it.
And then like 2 weeks later, or 2 or 3 weeks later, I don't know, I was just running, and I couldn't think of wanting to do anything else. It was just, I found it so relaxing. It was just a complete 180. And
Isn't that something?
And I was in love. I had a new passion. But then I decided the goal race at that time was the CIBC Run for the Cure, to raise money to fight off breast cancer.
Right.
So that was kind of the goal race of the clinic. But Carrie actually stuck with us and met with us to run weekly, so we could be ready for the Legs for Literacy, which was the big one in town that actually had a race chip, so I could get a medal and a time and all that stuff. So that was kind of my real goal race. But I basically, for the Run for the Cure, wanted to run without walking. So I kind of started practicing on my own, like running straight through instead of 10 and 1s. And I did that, and it took me over 30 minutes. And then at Legs for Literacy, which was, I think, 2 weeks later, I decided I want to come in under 30 minutes and I don't want to walk. So that was my 2 goals for that race. And I came in at 27 and a half minutes without a walk break.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, you set a goal early on in your running career and you're able to achieve it. And it's a pretty steep goal there that you set for yourself too. It's not easy to do.
And you crushed it.
Yeah, you crushed it. You didn't just beat it by a little bit. You crushed it. I mean, 3 minutes is a lot in the running world.
Oh, yeah. And I've had plenty of them crush me along the way, too. But that's why I learned that you have a secondary goal and sometimes a tertiary goal or whatever it is.
Yes. A, B, and C. Those are my goals. A, B, and C.
Yeah, it's true. You kind of do need a secondary goal because some people would not achieve their goal and then they might just give up or quit or stop running altogether.
In fact, I make sure that like at least 2 of my goals are not time-related goals at all. Like my number 1 is to come across the finish line standing up or vertical and smiling and having fun.
And that's a great goal. Sometimes my goal, depending on how my training is going, sometimes my goal is to make it to the start line uninjured.
Well, you know what? That's a pretty good goal all in itself.
Your legs get you to the start line. Your mind gets you to the finish line.
That's right. That's true. So then you ran your first 5K, and then a couple weeks later you ran another 5K. So then,
And then I ran about 3 or 4 more 5Ks that year. So I
okay.
did like the Clear the Trails, the Santa Shuffle. Basically, I was just signing up for 5Ks left and right. I saw one posted, I was signing up for it.
It sounds like you were addicted.
Oh yeah, like I say, once that 7th or 8th week kicked in, I was excited. And what's funny, I don't want to jump ahead of anything, but when I was running the 5K, and it's like, this is pretty good, and I said, I might even try a 10K, but I'm never going to be stupid enough to be a half marathoner.
You were really saying that to yourself, though?
Yeah, pretty much. And then after like Legs for Literacy, we had our clinic had decided we were going to meet downtown and kind of do a little celebration brunch that, after everybody, went and showered or whatever. And I got back a little bit early, and I was actually able to see some of the marathoners and half marathoners come across the line. And just to see, like, I could tell that they had put so much into it, and just they were leaving it all out there on the course. And I kind of knew that I was going to be doing a half marathon at some point in the future.
This is a great story, though, because, you're really getting into it. And I think that there's probably some of our listeners out there that maybe they just don't quite understand. And you maybe didn't at one time, like, why would a person run a half marathon? Why would a person run a marathon? And you saw it, and it just kind of clicked. Hey, I want to try this too. This really looks, looks difficult to do. I want to give it a shot.
So when did you do your first half marathon?
My first half, I believe that would have been Legs for Literacy the following year. So I jumped right over to, I did a couple of 10Ks in the spring of that year. Mm-hmm. And I think I did a 10K at the Hypothermic Run in February, which was a whole nother monster.
That's a beast.
So, yeah, I believe the first half marathon was the 2016 Legs for Literacy. Mm-hmm. And I was injured for like half of that training season. So I came off of my injury. I was probably still injured when I ran, so I did not get the time. In fact, I missed my goal time by 13 or 14 minutes.
Oh, yikes. So. But you had a secondary goal, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. Like by that point, I realized that, you have your lofty time goal that if everything's going exactly right and the wind's at your back, that goal. And then my backup goal, which is I had one. So I was within like the third goal at least, but it wasn't where I wanted to be.
And some days just aren't your day. Like you say, the wind is not at your back. Maybe your tummy is in distress. Maybe, so many different things can happen on race day.
How many half marathons have you run, Paul? Or do you know? Do you have any idea?
I was trying to think, and I really don't know. I do know that I wanted to run at least one half marathon in each season before I did a marathon, which I ended up doing that because I did 2 in the fall and 1 in each of the other seasons before I signed up for the marathon. But I've probably done, not including the ones that I do when I'm training for a marathon, I would say at least 8.
Do you have a favorite destination that you've been to where you did a half marathon? Was there a favorite spot that you were at?
Johnny Miles in New Glasgow, Nova Scotia. And also Eastern Passage to Maritime Race Weekend was my favorite 10K. So like Nova Scotia just knows how to do races.
They sure do.
Do you ever consider doing the half marathon for the Maritime Race Weekend? Do you ever consider doing the half marathon there? Because I know that's a tough half marathon. Those hills are nasty.
I was supposed to do it this year, actually.
And then the whole cough thing started, and then that was the end of that, right?
I think I was supposed to do the marathon, but then they had some kind of bridge or road construction, so they weren't able to keep the course closed long enough for the marathoners. Then I went down to a half marathon, but then obviously that didn't happen this year.
Yeah, everything shut down.
And how has this whole cough thing affected your racing / training? Are you training more now, less maybe because of this, or any difference, or what do you think?
I've been getting my runs in, but even though the races that I had signed up for, or like the marathons and half marathons that I was planning, they all were either deferred or canceled. And I just decided I was going to do the marathon that you had mentioned earlier. I decided I was going to do that. So I just have kind of stayed in a maintenance mode and kept my runs at least 5 a week, and sometimes up to 7, depending on how the week felt.
And you're training with a coach right now?
Yes.
Yes. And how is that going?
It's pretty good. It's a virtual coaching thing. It's like, so it's basically just emails and then some posting some stuff online or whatnot. But I think I would like it better in person. I like hanging out with folks. So I think he could probably see if I'm doing something wrong or how I'm landing or something. If maybe I'm just heel striking or not landing the exact right way, that he might show some pointers, but you can't really see that when I just send results over my runs. Yeah, but I'm getting good feedback overall because like with this, there's like weekly correspondence that I basically give them a diary of each run and how I was feeling or what was going on or
Mm-hmm. How long have you been training with a coach?
Just over a year.
Okay. And previously you were just training on your own, or were you doing the clinics through the running room?
Most of it was clinics through the running room. There's also a group in town, the Greater Moncton Run Club, that one year they had put together a training plan and had posted it on a site that for anybody wanting to run a half marathon or marathon. So, and then they would post group runs sometimes. So.
Okay. So I guess the big difference would be that a coach would provide you with a more individual program.
Yes. Like, for instance, last year I was dealing with an injury all year long, and I had to go down to a half marathon from a marathon at Prince Edward Island, unfortunately. But he was there with me as far as online, so he was able to adjust my schedule like that. So whereas with the running room, it's week 10, you're running, this is your long run, this is your 10 run, and he was like, okay, we'll drop 5K off of this run and do this instead of this for your long run. Personalized it pretty good for me.
Would you recommend the virtual coach to other people? Like, what do you think of the whole overall experience?
Yeah, I would recommend it because they definitely can get you to where you need to be. I mean, like I said, last year when I had them, I was dealing with an injury all year. And this year I started out the year, I think, a little bit more timid, and I've started, coming into my own lately. But yeah, I would recommend it. I mean, by far, I would recommend an in-person coaching session if you have that option. But the online is definitely good if you want to get your speed up.
Like Paul, I also have an online coach. He's here in Moncton, and I have met him for a couple of sessions, but mostly it's all on a spreadsheet online. And I would definitely recommend a coach if your goal is related to a time.
Yeah, you'd recommend a coach if you have a specific goal that you might have a hard time achieve and hope that this individual can help you out.
I really like having a coach because he does the thinking and I do the running. And based on what feedback I give him, he will, change my program to suit my individual needs.
Where did you hear about the virtual coach, Paul? Where did you hear? Is this just something you read, or people were talking about it from your running group, or you looked it up online? Where did you hear that about this?
I was actually in Halifax, Nova Scotia at Aerobics First, a running store there. There was a big cork board on the wall, and it had like a whole bunch of information like about different coaches in that area. And I think on Facebook I'd actually seen that group some too, so I just sent the email off and got some more information.
Can I ask you how much it costs? Because some people out there listening might think that this is the way to go, or might be interested in it and just want to know what the cost of this could be around.
The online one is $50 and then plus tax each month.
Okay. All right. That's fair.
But then there's other ones, like I've heard of other ones that are different prices, but again, there's different things being offered, or maybe not the Cadillac version or whatever. And then this one, if you're actually in Halifax, they have, I think, 3 different levels. And it did go progressively up as far as what is offered at each one.
I did a lot of research before I signed on with this one, and the going rate is anywhere from the $50 that you're paying up to about $125.
Yeah, and I've known some people in the U.S. that swear by their coaches, and I investigated it, and it was like $60 or $70 U.S. So by the time you convert that, you're up at $95 easy.
I just want to circle back to something real quick, if you don't mind, Paul. You talked about the Johnny Miles run, and you said how much you enjoyed it. And could you just tell us why you enjoy it so much, and maybe just give us a quick background of how that run actually works? Because I read about it; it's quite interesting. There might be some people out there that are listening that never heard of it and just might be interested in it.
I'm sure I heard about it through the running room or like one of the running magazines around, and I just decided I wanted to get into it. And I had a goal that I wanted to get in under. I wanted to be at 150 or better for that one, because I broke 2 hours a few times before, but I really wanted to push it and get down to 150. That day, it was one of those days where the wind was at my back, and I ended up with just over like 150 in 20 seconds or something like that.
Oh, wow. Nice.
So, like, yeah, I'm not in any threat of getting into Boston anytime soon, but I went in, I accomplished what I wanted. But just going down there, and I had never ran in that town before, and it was just a beautiful town, and the crowds were out there cheering. I mean, like, crowds in there, every town seemed to be cheering, but it's something about Nova Scotia. They get up early, and they're out there with cowbells or whatever to get you going. And you basically start right in this nice little, it looks like a historic downtown area. You cross this little bridge, and then for the half marathon, you basically do 2 loops and then cross the bridge and go back into the finish line. And you get the benefit. The bridge has a little bit of a hump, so you get a little downhill for that little final push. But it was just kind of cool, because the very first loop around, I had never, like I said, never been there before. So I was kind of bunched up with the rest of the pack, and, just exploring, seeing if there's any dips in the path that I needed to watch out for. And after a while, you started losing, like, the people that were running 10K didn't have to do the second loop, so they went on back to the finish line. And other people just kind of dropped, and I kept on doing my own. My wife's family is from that area, so she and some of her cousins and aunts were kind of riding around, so I got to see them at multiple spots, and that was really good. Like, I'm running alone, so in some areas I'm kind of getting down, and then all of a sudden I see familiar faces cheering me on, and it was just kind of really cool. And it just kind of kept me going and kept me kicking it in and getting to that 150.
So the half marathon was 2 laps and the 10K was 1. So the marathon, is that 4 laps?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, just curious.
I've heard great things about it.
Well, if we can get a vaccine, you'll see me there next year.
Okay.
That's fair enough.
And maybe I'll be there with you.
Now, since we're kind of talking about marathons, and you did one marathon before, that's correct, right?
Yes.
Did you want to go into that at all? Like what it was like? Was it everything you thought it was? Was it worse than you thought it was? Harder, easier, more training than you thought? I mean, what did you think about it?
It was probably the level of training and length of training that I was expecting. It was worse than I thought it was going to be, only because of the last month of training. And like, I was having a phenomenal training season. I wasn't dealing with injuries whatsoever. I was doing my long runs. The only time I had to stop and walk for a long run was if I got to a stoplight and I just didn't want to quit running, after 20 kilometers. And then the last month, there was I was having either too much of something or not enough of something, whether it was lack of electrolytes or too much water or whatever. And I just started feeling up like I had an upset stomach anytime I ran over 2.5 hours. And with 1 month to go, it's hard to really change up anything and figure out what's going on. So I basically had to stick it out and run it. So I had a great first half of the marathon, and then about the 30-kilometer mark, I could tell it was coming back, and I just had to push through and get through it. So I ended up quite a bit slower than I planned on being, but I definitely wasn't in the best shape when I got to the finish line, but I finished.
And when was this? What marathon did you do?
It was Legs for Literacy. I think it was in 2018.
Mm-hmm. Was that the first year that they changed the course, or was that the old course?
Yeah, that was the first year where they started at the Avenir Center, which really, I wish they had not let the 10K crowd start at the same time as us, because there were some 10K people that were running at a faster pace, like keeping up with my pace. And then they decided to do 10 and 1, 4 wide right in front of me. Like, I have like 30,000 more steps to do here, people. So move out of my way.
Well, that's pretty funny, Paul. But you had a stomach problem or stomach issue or something was going on. And did you ever actually figure out what was going on, or did that just not happen?
I tried. I went to go see like nutritionists and things like that. And I'd had blood work done, so she had actually looked at that. And
oh, wow. So it's pretty serious. I mean, you went and had blood work
done.
Oh,
well, I mean, it was just, that's because I'm old, so I have to get blood work done every year. And so,
oh, okay. I know, because you and I are the same age, so I know all about that.
But I mean, because I had gone to blood work, I just signed a form that my doctor could, release that information to her. And so she actually made a few suggestions for me, to take some, try to eat some seaweed or kelp or whatever, or fish oil or something. So things like that, and gave me some ideas of what to do for longer runs and how to prepare. So I did, start incorporating some of that. The salt tabs that I was using, I quit using those, and I actually bought a different brand of salt tab, and I've switched to pretty much real food when I'm out there. So like I'll have bananas and applesauce and things like that, like unsweetened applesauce, rather than gels, because gels are just disgusting to me. And later in a race they are. And it just gets stuck in my mouth and never go away.
And how is your training going? Because you're running a marathon soon, aren't you?
Yes, October 3rd.
That's very soon. So how are your long runs going?
They're going really well. So a couple of weeks ago, I was actually planning on I had a 31 kilometer run, and I was going to do a half marathon at race pace and then slow it down for the last 10 kilometers. And I ended up running faster than my planned race pace for the half marathon, and I ended up around race pace for the entire run.
Yeah, I saw you posted that, and I saw it, and I was like, "Oh yeah, he's motoring now." That was a good time, really good.
This past weekend, 1 week later, I ran less distance because I started my tapering. I ran less distance, slower, and it didn't feel half as good. So
it's funny how that works out sometimes.
Your marathon soon, Paul.
Yes.
And like you said, October the 3rd. And I'm just wondering, how long do you think it will take you to recover from that marathon? Like, will you have to do anything special to recover from that? And how long do you think it would take you before you could start running again?
I'm planning on running 4 or 5Ks, slow 5Ks the very next week. I'm definitely not going to do anything the rest of that day except for eat and lay on the couch. Then the Sunday, the October 4th, I'm probably not going to do much else other than maybe watch a football game and go to the fridge every so often. But then hopefully by Monday or Tuesday, I'm doing some slow 5Ks just to get the legs going again. Because after that, I have a plan that through the rest of 2020, I'm going to work on my 5 and 10K speeds, because I've already signed up for a virtual 10K on January 1st, and hopefully it'll be
nice.
Bruges Scramble on Christmas Day.
So you're going to transition from marathon to, hey, let's get the pace up and do some faster 5 and 10Ks.
It's going to take about 3 or 4 weeks of just kind of slow and short runs and just getting my legs moving for 30 minutes or so at a time. Yeah, probably November, I'm going to really focus on turning it up again.
Well, Paul, personally, I can't wait to get out there and try and run this marathon with you. I hope I can keep up with you, and don't let me slow you down, whatever. Do what you got to do and leave me behind. Don't worry about it, right?
And again, this is just me making up a marathon. I'm calling it COVID Carathon. My race entry fee is basically going to be $42.20 minimum donation to some charities. So I've already paid into the lymphedema thing. I'll probably also help out crisis, or not crisis. I can't think of the name. Whatever the Run for Women charity is in town.
Oh, yeah.
I'll probably help that. So to pay off the other part of that. And then, I've also, so 42.20 would be a $1 for every kilometer run. And then I want to donate or volunteer 26.2 hours minimum, which I've been helping out with the United Way Kitchen every Monday.
Oh, well, that's awesome, Paul. What a great job.
That is super.
So it's kind of keeping in the whole charitable giving of a race, but instead of some money going for the T-shirt and the medal, it's like all the money's going to the charities. So.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what, since I'm doing the run with you, I will donate the 42.20 to you as well. How's that?
Awesome.
That is
it's the least I can do.
Mm-hmm. Do you have many people that are going to be with you on course?
I have no idea. John's the only one that's spoken it out loud. I posted a draft of a route a few weeks ago on a couple of different Facebook groups, and I was going to post the actual final route within the next, probably this weekend sometime.
Okay. Somehow I missed that, and I'll have to go look for it. I'll be working that day anyway, but where are you starting?
Behind the running room.
Okay.
And I'll be finishing there.
Do you have a set time in mind for your marathon in October the 3rd?
I'd like to be in around 4 hours, but I'm not stressing it. Again, that's not my primary goal. Like, it'll be nice if I could get 4 hours or even 3:45, but as long as I'm out there having fun and whatnot, and you're probably going to have to yell at me for the last 10 kilometers to tell me to finish.
Well, if I can keep up with you, I'll yell at you, sure, but I imagine I'll be behind you somewheres. Do you know how many weeks you've been training specifically just for this run?
For this race would be 16 weeks of training. I was doing maintenance training or like maintenance and stuff like that beforehand.
Well, good luck. Good luck on that. I can't wait to hear how it goes for sure.
Thank you. I'll probably be running by your work spot a couple of times, so if I go in there, just spray me down with water.
Ooh, maybe I'll just goof off for a while and go out and sit outdoors and watch you go by. But I'll definitely look for your route, and if I can offer you some encouraging words on the way by, I'll definitely do that.
That'd be awesome.
Do you have any intentions of trying another marathon at some point, or do you think, hey, I've done enough marathons for now, I'm not really interested in doing any more?
I will at some point, but I actually think that after I get through like training for my Fast 5 and 10K, I want to focus on my speed for half marathon. And then down the road, I'll try to go back into the marathon every so often.
Mm-hmm. So you're looking to run, you want to get down to that faster 150 minus half marathon then is what you're
thinking? Like a 140 or something like that eventually. Yeah, but it just goes back to like when I'm that first Legs for Literacy 5K where I was actually watching some of the half marathoners and marathoners come out, and I could see their emotions on, they were wearing everything they had put into that race.
Right.
And I know people that are battling all sorts of stuff, whether it's physical sickness or depression or whatever. And 5K is their marathon. And that's a big freaking deal. And they're putting everything, their whole heart out there. And I respect somebody like that.
Absolutely.
I agree.
That inspires me.
And Paul, you're from the United States, but you live in Canada. Do you run in kilometers or miles?
I run in kilometers just because like through the running room and all that, and all my training is like out of Canada, so I run in kilometers. But I actually train and I look at what it is Fahrenheit rather than Celsius.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
That's interesting.
And I go by real feel. I don't do any of this. Where in Celsius, it's 5 degrees, but it feels like minus 12. That means it's minus 12. That's how I
Screw this, Paul? Hey, it says it feels like minus 12. It's minus 12. None of this.
So you run in the cold, and you're going to be doing a run on Christmas Day and New Year's Day. Tell us your best cold weather tip.
Well, if the ground is icy, I always say lower your base, slow your pace, or you'll fall on your face.
And has that ever happened to you?
Not so. There's a few times I stumbled, and there's a few things where I thought were ground, but turned out to be a really thin, icy puddle.
Yeah.
Everlasting puddle. But the worst thing, I was running on a street in Moncton with a group on a Saturday morning, and it was the day after an ice storm. So basically the street was a good layer of ice, and started going down a little decline on a little hill. And my feet went out from under me. I landed on my tailbone and went to the bottom of the hill. Thankfully stopped before I was out in the middle of traffic, because that would have been a horrible end to that one.
Oh, for sure.
But it did not feel good.
I know, Paul, from talking to you and running with you some, that you've had some setbacks. And I mean, any runner that's run any amount, we've all had some setbacks. But did you ever consider, since you fell in love with running, did you ever come to the point where you just thought, hey, you know what, this is just not worth it? I'm tired of this. I'm just going to stop. I'm going to quit. Did you ever get to that point?
Absolutely not. It's no reason. Like some of it, like I realized late last year that I was actually either my foot had changed or I had been fitted into the wrong type of shoe, because I was wearing a stability shoe and it wasn't allowing my foot to fall properly. And it was actually causing a lot of the injuries that I was having. And so I switched to a neutral shoe, and I haven't been to a physio since, knock on wood. But
So, Paul, I know you do some reading. Do you have a favorite motivational book or a favorite book about running, or, biography of an athlete or something?
For guidance and inspiration, the Bible. But for like a running book, it basically any one of them, whether it's a running book or a psychology book that deals with perseverance, grit, pushing through, getting past that mental block. Couple running books I have, or books like that, would be Endure by Alex Hutchinson, and How Bad Do You Want It by Matt Fitzgerald.
Oh, I have that. I've read it a couple of times.
It's just mind over matter.
It's true.
And that's so true.
Paul, congratulations on your weight loss that you mentioned earlier. I know that wasn't easy for you. How have your eating habits changed over the past few years?
Well, when I first started losing weight, and I've got to remember, I was probably eating out fast food quite a bit, and I was always, doing maybe extra helpings of things, because I grew up like, we had holidays. I wouldn't eat dessert at holidays. I would just go stick a couple of slices of pie or whatever in my room, and I would just eat seconds and thirds of whatever the meal was, just basically packing it on. And in the South, all of our vegetables are coated, and like we cook it in ham hock and things like that, and get flavor to it. But all that flavor comes with a price. So basically just, watching some of that stuff and kind of being more mindful of things. And then the second time around, I actually started paying more attention to my macros. So like right now I'm eating more carbs because I've not gotten to that high fat diet, fad that some people are in. I'm more into eat a lot of about 45-50% carbs while I'm training. And then I'll drop that down and keep my protein up.
Okay, that's very interesting, and it seems to be working for you.
Yeah, and also I eat at least 6 times a day, so I have my 3 real meals and then protein, carb, snack in between.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I eat 6 times a day. Hey, whatever works, and if that's what it takes, and that's probably the best thing to do, is to eat more often and a little bit less as you go, I think is the way that it really should work. But we have so much food here where we live now in North America. There's such an abundance of it, and advertisements for all of it everywhere you turn. Computer, as you're driving, it's on the radio, it's on your, it's on the televisions, and it just forces us, I think, without us realizing it, to go out and eat some of the stuff that we probably shouldn't be eating as much.
Well, it's so easy to just grab something on the go when you don't have time because your life is so busy.
That's true. And the food thing kind of leads me to something that I did want to ask. Now, Paul, you and I have talked about this a few times. So could you please tell us the difference between what we call a barbecue here in the Maritimes, and I know you don't call it a barbecue. Could you just tell us what it is that you guys call it in North Carolina?
Well, one thing, barbecue is a food in North Carolina. What you call a barbecue, we would call a cookout.
A cookout, that's right, yeah. Yes.
And you don't cook on a barbecue, you cook on a grill. And barbecue itself is a food. And I actually have a quote A guy had wrote about that, trying to explain it to people up in some of the northern states. And it's by William Schmidt, whoever he is. In the South, barbecue is not just a food. It is a cultural ritual practiced with a kind of religious fervor among barbecue sects, each of whom believes their particular concoction of smoking sauce and spices is the only true way to culinary salvation.
That's fantastic.
And then to add to that, it's basically there's three required components of an authentic barbecue. It has to have been barbecue that is cooked for a long time, several hours, at a low temperature with heat and smoke from fire of hardwood and or hardwood coals. It has to be pork if it's North Carolina, usually whole hog or whole shoulder. It's whatever the people in Lexington and Western North Carolina say, they're wrong, and Texas and all these other places are wrong. The barbecue is a thin sauce that includes things like vinegar, cayenne pepper, hot pepper sauce, salt and pepper, and they liberally douse that on while the pig's cooking.
Wow, I had no idea that there was so much to it.
I had no idea that I've been doing it so wrong all this time.
But it is beautiful to watch. And then when they chop it and mince it all nice for you and throw it on a plate. And then if you go further south, some people put mustard on it. And even in Alabama, they put mayonnaise on it. It's just, I don't know. I think the humidity affects people after that.
Oh, my.
I don't think I would like mayonnaise on it personally.
I think that would be an acquired taste, maybe.
Yeah, but I really like mustard, so that would be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I like mustard, just not on my barbecue.
Yeah, you're right. Probably not the place for it. I mean, I like it too, but not on everything. I wouldn't put it on cereal. Why would I put it on the barbecue? It just doesn't work.
Yeah. So before we go, Paul, I just want to ask you, what advice would you today give to 18-year-old Paul?
Never stop writing, because I wanted to be a sports journalist and I love writing all through high school and things like that. And I just somehow or another got out of the practice. And it's like, I'll still journal some, but nowhere near what I used to. I would definitely have liked to have kept that up, whether I went professional with it or not.
Okay. So when you journal, do you do that with paper and pen, or do you journal on the computer?
Usually paper and pen. I'm a dinosaur.
Mm-hmm. No,
Old school.
That's cool. No, I think that's awesome.
It's no different than me writing down my mileage on the calendar every day when I run. I mean, that is as old school as it gets. How many people do that these days?
Well, you seem to have more of a connection with something if you actually write it down with your own hand and a pen on paper, I think.
I find that helps me too. Like, I don't have a calendar, but I write down every run, like what the temperature is when I start, what the run was scheduled to be. So if I was supposed to do 10 800-meter repeats at a certain pace, say it was really hot that day and I only got 6 at that pace, and then I kind of sandbagged it the rest of the way through, then I could put my actual one I knew, and I was, it was 18 trillion degrees outside that day, and so that's why I didn't. This time of year, once it starts dipping down and I know that I have a race coming up, I'll be like, okay, well, it's 6 degrees Celsius, and I really needed to have long sleeves on when I was running today. So that way on race day, if I know it's going to be 6 degrees Celsius, I'm like, well, 3 weeks ago, I needed long sleeves at 6 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, I mean, you could be jotting down some pretty important information X amount of days, weeks, or even months later and say, hey, I went through this before, let's look that up. And you see a correlation for maybe something didn't agree with you, or, whatever. Maybe the temperature was, you needed more on than you thought, and you wrote that down. And I think that's a really good idea. I never thought about it that way before.
And I put the wind speed as well as the gust.
Well, Paul, is there anything else that you wanted to say tonight or talk about? Is there something you wanted to go over? Or?
I get so many times that, I know I'm not like the Boston Maritime fast. I know I'm faster than some people, but like sometimes you get around people and they don't want to run with you because they think that you're going to outrun them. It's like, no, I'm not racing you. I just want, to run.
I know. Some people just don't get it.
Riverview has, you have some people like Dennis that you're just looking at the bottom of their shoes the whole time. And then, there's some people who are running a bit slower than that. And everybody just kind of falls in and has the conversations, and you end up talking to about 5 or 6 different people on a run.
Yes. Yeah, it's great.
in the interest of time, I think we're going to leave it there for this evening. So for our very special guest, Paul Bass, and my amazing co-host, Diane Trites, I'm John Legroff, and we'll see you next time on Motivate to Move. Good night.
Bye for now.